Ahoy there! Stop scrolling for 1 second and look at your hands. Now imagine those hands covered in open sores, holding a piece of wood so hard it could stop a cannonball, while you stand knee-deep in a mixture of seawater and your own urine. You think life at sea during the Age of Discovery was all heroic explorers, salty breezes, and epic sunsets. That is a lie sold to you by Disney and people who have never smelled a 3-month-old rat. Tonight, I am spilling 33 of the dumbest, weirdest, and downright absurd realities that sailors actually lived through. We are talking about wind-in-a-bag scams, rooster tattoos as divine insurance, and enemas made of tobacco smoke. This is not just history. It is a masterclass in bad decisions, questionable hygiene, and creative superstition that makes modern crypto bros look like geniuses. So grab your grog, steady your stomach, and let the United States set sail into the weirdest corner of maritime history, where the only thing dumber than the captain was the crew. So, you are the new guy on the ship, fresh off the farm, smelling like soap and hope, and you are about to cross the equator. You think maybe you will get a high five, a hearty handshake, or a welcome party with some decent snacks. No. You get dragged into a mandatory corporate retreat from hell run by King Neptune, who is just the ship's greasiest dude wearing a dead jellyfish on his head like a crown. His onboarding process involves his pals holding you down, while he gives you a close shave with a rusty barrel hoop that has seen more action than a port town prostitute, and has probably given half the crew tetanus. Then, for the team-building exercise, they baptize you by repeatedly power dunking your head into a barrel of what is essentially the ship's forgotten science projects. It is a warm, chunky smoothie of seawater, old food, and everyone's recycled rum from the night before. It is not a rite of passage. It is a biological attack designed by someone who hates humanity. Type 1 in the comments if you would survive day 1 without crying for your mother. But wait, it gets worse, because stupidity is an infinite resource on these floating prisons. You think non-fungible tokens are a dumb investment. Let me introduce you to their spiritual ancestor, wind in a bag. Yes, back in port, con artists with the greasy charm of a televangelist selling miracle water would literally sell bags of air. They would do this whole theatrical dance, catch a breeze in a canvas sack and tie it off with 3 proprietary patented knots. The sales pitch was legendary. The first knot gives you a little puff, my friend. The second knot, a strong gale. The third knot summons a hurricane that will personally send you to meet your maker, so do not touch it unless you want to die. So some poor sap buys this premium artisanal air for a week's pay, thinking he has bought the ultimate survival hack. Then months later, becalmed and desperate, he opens it and gets a sad, anticlimactic puff of nothing. He just got rugged by the world's first airdrop scammer. Pause and guess how many sailors died waiting for wind that was already tied up in a sack. Sailors did not have much faith in God, but they had immense faith in finding bugs in his system. Their favorite life hack was tattooing a pig on one foot and a rooster on the other. The logic was so galaxy-brain stupid it is almost admirable. They figured that since pigs and roosters are famously terrible swimmers, if the sailor fell overboard, God would be up there managing the universe and suddenly do a double take. Hold the phone. Is that a chicken drowning? My code does not allow for this glitch. And in that moment of divine blue screen of death, God would have no choice but to reach down and scoop the sailor to safety to prevent a system crash. It was less an act of faith and more an attempt to file a technical support ticket with the Almighty using permanent ink. Imagine explaining that logic to a priest today and watching their brain short-circuit. The primary food item on board was called hardtack. Calling it food is a stretch. It was more like a geological specimen that happened to be made of flour and despair. It was baked until it had the density of a bowling ball and the flavor of a dusty shelf in a library nobody visits. Biting into it was a great way to trade your teeth for a lifetime of soft food and liquid diets. So, the only way to consume this culinary brick was to either pulverize it with a cannonball or let it marinate in rum until it became a sort of alcoholic gravel. And the best part, Each biscuit came with its own live-in tenants, a thriving community of weevils and maggots. These were not bugs. They were squirming sprinkles adding extra protein to your diet. The official naval guidance was to just eat in the dark. What you cannot see cannot emotionally scar you, or so they told themselves while crunching on larvae. You would think the scariest thing at sea would be a kraken or a ghost ship. You would be wrong. The single most terrifying object in the universe to a sailor was a banana. Bringing a banana on a ship was worse than bringing your mother-in-law or admitting you voted for the wrong candidate in 2024. It was a guaranteed fast-track ticket to doom. The legends were specific and absolutely unhinged. A ship with bananas would repel fish, its wood would rot faster, and the ship itself might just get depressed and sink out of sheer shame. While scientists might mumble something about ethylene gas accelerating ripening and rot, sailors knew the truth. The banana was a sentient yellow agent of chaos, a fruit-shaped demon that actively wanted to watch them drown. They would sooner have a live tiger on board than a single banana. Type 2. If you have ever blamed a fruit for your bad luck. If you got injured at sea, your doctor was the ship's barber. And his medical philosophy was simple. Is that limb bothering you? Let the United States make it someone else's problem immediately. This guy's medical kit was basically a toolbox he stole from a construction site. And his favorite prescription was a good old-fashioned amputation via a saw that he probably used to build his own workbench earlier that morning. Anesthesia was for rich people on land. Your painkiller was a shot of rum and biting on a leather wallet until you passed out from the taste of old sweat. While 4 dudes sat on you to keep you from kicking, this guy, with all the surgical precision of a blindfolded lumberjack, would perform what was less a medical procedure and more an act of frantic, violent carpentry. His Yelp review would be 1 star. Came in with a splinter, left with a stump, did not offer a lollipop. When you are trapped on a wooden plank in the middle of nowhere for months, your standards for entertainment drop faster than the stock market in a recession. So, what did they do? They held the most prestigious and disgusting sporting event known to man, cockroach racing. The ship was basically a moving cockroach apartment complex, so they had an infinite supply of athletes. Sailors would capture the beefiest, most athletic-looking roaches from the bilge, give them epic names like Usain Bolt's Nightmare or Sir Reginald Scuttles, and place them in a chalk circle. Then grown men would scream, cry, and bet their last possessions on which bug could run in a semi-straight line the fastest. This was their Super Bowl. It was a pathetic, glorious, and deeply unhygienic spectacle that proves boredom is the mother of all terrible ideas. Who would you bet on? The roach with the limp or the one that looks like it ate a bomb? Let the United States discuss workplace disciplinary action. You get a bad performance review, maybe a stern email from human resources telling you to circle back next quarter. A sailor screws up, and he gets subjected to a little something called keel hauling, which is the most terrifyingly polite name for what is essentially a high-speed underwater mauling. The concept was simple. Tie a man to a rope, throw him off one side of the ship, and drag his body along the entire submerged hull to the other side. Now, the bottom of a ship was not smooth like a baby's bottom. It was a jagged, razor-sharp metropolis of barnacles, splinters, and ancient sea grime. It was less of a punishment and more of a forced tour of a coral reef made of tetanus and pain. The sailor faced a fun choice: die by drowning immediately or die a bit later from 1,000 infected gashes after being turned into human sashimi. Keel hauling was not a deterrent. It was the Human Resources Department's most creative and final solution to staffing issues. And here is the layer right under their pants that nobody talks about. What did they wear for underwear? The answer is a resounding, deafening, and profoundly uncomfortable nothing. Their only layer was the rough wool of their trousers rubbing directly against skin that had not seen soap in 6 months. Imagine the chafing. Imagine the friction burns. Imagine walking around with a permanent rash in places you do not even want to think about. They called it freedom. I call it a slow-motion torture device designed by a sadist. If you think your jeans are uncomfortable after a long flight, you have no idea what suffering actually feels like. Now, let the United States zoom out and look at the consequences of this absolute madness. For 10 years, 50 years, even centuries, these idiots kept sailing, discovering new lands and mapping the globe, all while eating bugs, drinking urine, and believing that tattoos of farm animals could hack the divine operating system. The irony is thick enough to cut with that rusty barrel hoop. We look back at them as heroes, but they were barely functioning survivors of their own stupidity. Today, we complain about slow Wi-Fi or running out of avocado toast, while our ancestors were fighting sharks with spoons and praying to a drawing of a pig on their foot. The parallel is clear. Humans have always been capable of incredible feats, despite being completely out of their minds. We have just replaced superstition with algorithms and urine with energy drinks. The core level of delusion remains exactly the same. So, here is the brutal truth. The age of discovery was not a time of glory. It was a 13-minute episode of a reality show where everyone loses their mind and nobody wins. The 33 dumbest realities we just covered are just the tip of the iceberg of human incompetence. If you manage to sit through this without vomiting, congratulations. You have a stronger stomach than an 18th century cabin boy. Do not forget to smash that like button if you learned something gross. Subscribe if you want more historical roasts, and hit the bell so you do not miss the next time I drag you through the mud of history. Check the link in the description for my coffee fund, because explaining why people ate maggots requires a lot of caffeine. Until next time, keep your socks dry and your expectations low.